Hi, welcome Biz Besties, and we are on to our next session, and we're speaking to the beautiful Ari Powell.
Hi.
And Ari's going to introduce herself to you and her superpower. But why I'm really excited to have Ari here is she really believes in embodying women's transformations. And, that is a superpower in itself, because we know that we can transform, but to actually embody it and move through it can be really hard. So, Ari, please introduce yourself and let us know what your superpower is.
So thanks, Nicole. So I'm a mindset mentor and a creatrix transformologist. And my superpower really is specializing in the female mindset and working on helping and supporting women to really get from underneath all of the social, societal, epigenetic crap that has been put on top of us to keep us small. And so I help women emerge from that to be confident, to be courageous in what they're wanting to do, and to really step up in their lives so that what they are outside living their life is who they know they are deep down inside as well, and that those two things match.
So it's aligning the two together. So
Yes.
in a way, your superpower is alignment of women so that they can truly be who they want to be wherever they are. That's awesome. Can I just get you to touch on epigenetics for the people who haven't done any studies on it? Because it can be a coaching word. So can you explain to me what epigenetics is, please?
Yeah, so epigenetics is just, so we know that we inherit, the knobbly knees or the funny chin. I've got the Patmore jawline from my great-great-grandmother somewhere there. So we inherit physical attributes. But what they've discovered now is that we also inherit emotional attributes as well. And it makes a lot of sense. Behavioural stuff being passed on genetically means that we learn to steer clear of certain things, almost like that gut instinct that we know is there.
So one of the examples that I'm aware of is that we can take on our monetary fears or monetary mindset of our parents or grandparents or great-grandparents. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So the one I often come across with clients is fear of rejection. And a lot of the time in the coaching world, people go, don't worry about what other people think of you. Like, just get over it and do it anyway. And it ignores the fact that generations back, rejection from society or community was life-threatening. It meant you were out on the ice floe with the polar bears or you were burnt at the stake. So saying that now it's not, that we just need to get over it, doesn't address the fact that on a DNA level, we really still feel that fear. So that's why epigenetics is such an important and interesting, I think, aspect of mindset, because it is this sort of generational thing and we have to kind of reprogram it. Yeah.
So how is that important to the women who are watching to align themselves with their inside and outside? How does that achieve? How does our epigenetics affect that?
Wow, gosh, so in such a huge way, because we're very aware of childhood messaging that we get that affects how we live life, and epigenetics works in very much the same way.
Okay.
So we make decisions based on what we believe, either unconsciously or consciously, about the world and about ourselves. So in terms of how we want to then live fully as ourselves, if we're fearful that showing up in life like that would see us rejected, or that it's unseemly or unacceptable, that rich people are mean, or poor people aren't hardworking, or whatever weird beliefs get passed on through different layers, that then affects whether we go for that job, have that relationship, see who we want to see, embrace our sexuality, our personality, our diversity. And we often will suppress aspects of ourselves because we don't want to let ourselves go there. We're just too scared of what the consequences will be. And by allowing women to kind of unburden themselves from those restrictions, it actually means that they can show up for themselves, and they're not quietly punishing themselves for either not being who they are, or when they do show up in that way, then beating themselves up afterwards, kind of like, oh no, like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have been like that because now everyone thinks whatever. So it just makes life so much more worth living when we can just be who we are and love what we do, and not just be constantly feeling shame and guilt and paranoia about what we're wanting to, how we're living. So it means we connect with people more, we have deeper relationships, deeper connections, and we're able to have more joy in our life. And I think that's got to be a good thing.
What is something that an unaligned woman who, that can't or is in the middle of transformation and doesn't have the confidence, what can they actually do to help them to step into that?
Yeah, so I think honestly the first step that really helps women is actually realizing where those blocks are, because the kicker is, of course, 90% of it's unconscious. So they don't even know why they're feeling the way they're feeling. They don't even know why they don't have the confidence to do those things. And so really just that first step of realizing, oh, that's why I hold myself back. That's why I don't take that action. It's suddenly, we're great at beating ourselves up. And all of a sudden, it's not like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I get myself together? And it's like, oh, there's nothing wrong with me. This is actually a story that so many women have, and I'm just one of those. So there's a lot of release that comes from that. And that's the first step in being able to then transform that and move into actually doing something different. So I think that's really, it's a powerful step, and one that's often overlooked.
Is there something that women or the viewers can do to help them find that block? Because often, as you said, that block's unconscious, and so we don't know what we don't know. I often refer to my clients in marketing that, you can't sell something to someone if they don't know it exists. So, and similar with mindset, we know we're not achieving something, but how do we find those blocks when we don't know what we don't know?
Yeah. So I think really the first thing is that most people have an inkling.
Yeah.
They're not quite sure what it is. They can't put their finger on it, but they have an inkling that they're holding themselves back in some way. Or they see that they're in a pattern. Like I always attract, terrible relationships, or I always seem to have this pattern behavior repeat. So it's an inkling that starts off with. How they can then start identifying the block is, and it's always, I suppose my little disclaimer is, to be honest, it's best with someone else. Yeah. And that's not just because of, oh, work with me. It is actually best with someone else because we unconsciously also protect ourselves. Those beliefs have been our safety net, and so we immediately resist becoming aware of them and changing them. So having someone else to kind of just push us that little bit more will get us there. But even without the help, asking ourselves questions like, why is this important? What does this say about me? So when we do something and we're feeling an emotional response to something that's happened, what am I making this say about me? What am I making this mean about who I am? And why is that important? What does that mean? And asking ourselves, well, why is that important? What does that mean? What am I making that mean about me? And why is that important? And simply repeating those three questions, we can really start to get down into some of that kind of really meaty emotional stuff that often sits underneath why we're in these patterns.
So when we're looking for blocks and looking at these patterns, it comes down to our view of reality as well, and the judgment we can put on that. How can the reality and the judgments we set on ourselves in this transformation or aligning ourselves actually create a bigger block maybe, or help us move forward?
Good question. I think with something like this, we can, and that's probably the risk when we start doing this work, is that we can sometimes then make it mean, right? We've discovered that we've got these blocks and we make it mean I'm broken, I can't be fixed, there's something wrong with me. Or if we have been working with coaches, counselors, whatever in the past, that it becomes this, no one can help me. I'm beyond help. And so that then can become, in a weird way, a bit of a security blanket to keep us where we are. And it feels right at the time, but of course it's detrimental if we allow it. So that's the negative, and why I think then working with someone who's able to hold you accountable and call you out on that is critical. But where it can become a positive thing is if we can suspend that judgment and, like I said, have that moment of like, wow, it's actually not just me. Like, I'm not, I always feel terrible sometimes saying this to clients. It's like, your problems aren't actually that unique. Like, I'm sorry, like you and everyone else. And it feels hard to hear, because when we're dealing with a problem, it feels like, I know other people have this issue, but it's not like how I have this issue. And we can really feel like, I know you kind of get it, but you don't really get it. And it's true. No one's ever going to truly understand it from your point of view. But if we can suspend that judgment enough to be able to go, right, my problems aren't that unique. And there are others out there that are having these issues, which means that there's also solutions out there. It means that if others can get through this and transform their life, I can get through this and transform my life. And so to me, I see that going from one space of judgment and helplessness and moving into a space of hope. And when you're in that space, then there's opportunities and possibility. And that just cracks everything open then. Yeah.
Do you think that as women, we take our strengths for granted as well? Like, we actually have these amazing strengths and opportunities, but we hide behind them because and you may have better, we hide behind what these strengths will give us in the future, and we may not want to step into that.
Ooh, yes. Oh gosh, such a juicy topic. Yes. So there's a few things that are going on in that space. The first thing is that we often overlook what we're excellent at because we're just so good at it. We don't see, because it comes so naturally to us that we're like, well, why would anyone want to pay me for that? Because, like, of course it's really easy, but forgetting that other people do not find it that straightforward. So that's the first place where we often overlook what we're actually truly capable of. I think the second place is what you touched on towards that end of that question, which is that it's almost a fear of just how good we might actually really be at something. And I think that's probably the more exciting / scary part of it, because it's true. And it comes back to those epigenetic beliefs around being seen and being visible and standing out. In the past has been a deadly sport to play, especially for women. And so there is, we talk about, putting your head above the parapet. It's that kind of like, do I really want to, put myself in the firing line? And so there is that fear of, do I really want to be quite that visible? And I encounter this with clients a lot, where some of the fears that come up when we're talking about what's the worst thing that could happen if you were truly successful at what you're wanting to do. Sounds like an odd question, but we get things like, I think I worry about what would happen to my child. They would be in danger, or people would stop being my friends, or I'd be kidnapped, or and sometimes quite far-fetched, very highly unlikely scenarios, but deep down at the core, we hold those fears. And so there is that, the true greatness that we can be, because we sometimes.
So can that be a really good example of epigenetics, that you actually create these far-fetched fears, but you've got no reason to create these far-fetched, you've had nothing occur to you in your life to actually create these fears, but they're there and you can't explain them.
Completely.
How does someone identify that they're actually scared of succeeding, because I don't think we often talk about, you know, that you have a problem or you need a solution or you have an outcome. But I'm not sure whether it's that women realise that they are afraid of being successful. How can they, what's something in their mind that you can identify that may be going on for them and that they could work on that further?
I think that the easiest way to do is, what do you catch yourself saying all the time?
Okay.
Because there are unconscious beliefs that are running on autopilot. It can be things like, I'm exhausted. Now, as women, we do get exhausted, not denying that. But
Yeah.
sometimes we can fall into that immediate, like, oh, how are you doing? Oh, yeah, I'm so tired. And you think, okay, well, so what's going on? Oh, nothing. Like, all right. And then they're like, oh, well, I'm not really that tired. Like, I've just got a bit going on. So we can sometimes fall into these patterns of behaviours. And so things like, I don't want to be too busy. I don't have time for that. Even things like, you know, money things like, oh, we don't have the money for that. And then stopping yourself and going, well, hang on, do I have the money for that? Could I find the money for that if I really, really wanted this, if it was, you know, really important? And I think, you know, when we ask ourselves, do I really have the money? You only have to create a scenario of something where you would, you know, move heaven and hell to find the money to know that actually I do have the money. I'm just making choices about this. So I think that it's those beliefs that we catch ourselves saying with friends and in just general conversation with our children, with you know, colleagues and peers. They're the things that are, you know, they are our truth. They're not the truth, but they are our truth because they roll off the tongue. We don't even give them a second thought. Start catching yourself in those, and you'll start to reveal what kinds of beliefs you have about what you want to do and how you want to go. Yeah.
And I guess the next step is to stop reinforcing those statements with the choices you're making.
Yeah, absolutely. And challenging those beliefs as well. Hang on, do I really not have the time, or am I just choosing not to have the time? You know, those sorts of things, and just really, and that's not to say that, you know, okay, well, actually I do have the time. I just don't want to do it. Okay, that's fine. Cool. Don't do it. But let's not say that it's because you don't have the time. And I think owning those decisions, that's a powerful step of embodiment as well, because we often don't want to insult, we don't want to reject, we don't want to hurt someone and say, I just don't want to do that. So we say, oh, look, I'm too busy. So, but being able to say, you know what, thank you so much for that offer, but for me right now, I'm concentrating on this, and so I'm just going to decline. And we don't need to be worrying about hurting other people, but we are honouring ourselves and honouring our space and honouring our time and doing it in a way that is, we're being true and true to ourselves.
What is something that you think that we as women don't know about our mindset that we go along? And for my part, being in the coaching thing, mindset is a massive word that's been used for the last year or so. And I think even myself, who's been trained in it, like, you know, I don't concentrate in it, you miss some of the importance of mindset. What is it that you think that, as you know, as in general, we're missing as women to understand mindset and how important it is?
So there's two things that I think are the most important for women to understand about mindset. The first one is that a lot of mindset techniques and strategies are taught, have been designed by men for men and are very effective with men. And that's not to say that they're not effective for women, but there are some that don't work as well. And because we are wired up differently, we have a hormonal cycle, it impacts how we perceive the world, and our perception is our reality, right? So if we perceive things through that filter of our hormones at whatever phase we are, it does change how we can do things. And we do have different ebbs and flows of physical energy. So going back to that feeling tired stuff, we do have, that's a reality of our biology. So a lot of the sort of mindset stuff that's like, you know, get out there and be consistent and turn up every day and get disciplined. I mean, oh gosh, if I have a dollar for every woman that says, I just wish I could be more disciplined. But they're highly disciplined people, it's not that they don't have discipline. There's so much other stuff going on. So understanding that a lot of the strategies, well, not a lot, but many of the strategies won't necessarily work for you as a woman, and being able to embrace the fact that there are those differences and find things that are going to work more effectively, I think is probably a really important thing when we start looking at mindset. Because you're right, mindset's like, it's a huge concept and there's a lot of things that fit under that umbrella. So I think being able to understand that there's some subtleties and nuances that need to be looked at is the first thing. And there's a second thing, and I can't think what it was that I was going to say.
So I have a question for you, and you touched on that overwhelm and frustration come into it. Do you think overwhelm and frustration can be a mindset issue as well as women have taken? Well, I guess, is it a mindset issue? Like, can mindset help with overwhelm and frustration?
Yeah, so overwhelm to me is there's a few things going on, and a big one that comes up is boundaries. We don't want to say no, so we take on everything, and then that becomes overwhelming. We think that we need to focus more, but women, their eye, the retina and everything, that's all the cells that are on there are actually geared up for focus. It's why we notice things so well. You know, it's why we go, oh, new brooch, nice hairdo, love your makeup today. We notice that stuff because our brains are in focus already. So we think, oh, we've got to focus more. And it's like, I use the analogy of high school science, and you're using microscopes. And we're always taught you wind it right down to the glass whilst you're looking away from it, and then you put your eye over it and you wind away from the glass. Because if you've got your eye over the piece and you wind down, then you'll crack the glass. That's what we are trying to, a lot of mindset out there is like, oh, you put your head on the thing and you wind down and you focus more and you focus more. And all we're doing is having a lot of women cracking their glass. Yeah. What they need to be able is pull back and look at the bigger space of it and go, right, what fits in here, what doesn't? Where are my boundaries? What is me and what is society and all of those obligations and rules that say I need to be in a certain way, and what's actually me. And that's the work I love doing, is that helping women emerge and discern between what is actually them and what they truly want to do, and what is all of that messaging out there that we get. That's where that gets overwhelming, where we're not quite sure, is this what I want to do, or is this what everyone's telling me I should be doing?
That leads on to an important question that I'm really quite passionate privately about, is that as women, we've been told to step up as being women in the online space, we need to run a business. And I think that's created, it's that what you just said, it's a need that you have to run a business. And then when it's not for somebody, it puts them in a place that they can't back out. What do you think about that?
Yeah. So I think that that message is such a terrible disservice to everyone, because, and I was thinking about this in the shower. If everyone left their 9 to 5 and went and started a business, we wouldn't have service providers. Now, my background's in teaching, so teachers, doctors, nurses, they all went and ran a business, we wouldn't have them. So it's far. Not that that would ever happen, but I think already we need people who are doing those jobs and services that aren't strictly a business. And I think the other thing is that it's like the laptop lifestyle. I always love this example, or the white picket fence. For some people, the laptop lifestyle, sitting beside the pool or on a beach and tappity tap tap and living out of suitcases, they're just like, I am there. That is my heaven. Me personally, breaking out in cold sweat right now just thinking about it. It is just, it's not my thing. I don't want that. But at one point, before I did heaps of mindset work, I was like, oh, maybe there's something wrong with me. Like, I'm such a conformist. Like, I need to break out of that. And I realized, no, it's just not for me. And for me, like, I like having my home base. Like, you can see, I've you know, I have lots of house plants and things like that. I could never live in a caravan. So for me, that's great. But the thought for someone else of owning a home, having a mortgage, you know, that kind of thing, that just feels like restriction and confinement. So it is about finding your path, what's true for you. You know, those goals that sort of float around on this list, this menu that we're meant to pick off, like $10,000 months or a six-figure business or a, you know, that those too are messages that they'll be right for some people. They'll be absolutely the right thing for some people, and for others, just not what they need to be focusing on and looking for. So I think that message of you've got to get out there and have a business and, you know, that kind of thing, it's not helpful. The message I would probably would like to send is you've got to get out there and find your thing in business.
I guess and that's the thing, people need to find their purpose, and living your purpose doesn't mean the only way to do that is to be a successful businesswoman. You can very easily work 9 to 5 and get a great wage and still go out and create your philanthropy and all of that stuff to make the world better. You've touched on boundaries. How does aligning yourself and becoming confident in your transformation help with your boundaries?
Yeah, it's everything.
Yeah.
By knowing who you are and what is important to you and what is, you know, your way of living, gives you clarity around what you're going to tolerate and put up with. And boundaries is based on, it's not, you know, it sounds like it's a fancy thing. It's literally, here's where my line is drawn. That's my boundary. You step over it, we're done. And so it's just knowing where your lines are drawn and in all areas of your life, and knowing that you can enforce that boundary. So I also work with clients around building boundaries. And one of the things that I say is if you're not prepared and willing to enforce that boundary, don't even bother making it. You have to be willing to do it.
Sorry. Yeah, so Ari, with the women who are watching right now or watching the replay, what is one thing that you would ask them to embody in their lives from where they are right now, with what they have right now, to align themselves? What would be one thing that you would share with them that they can do right now? It's a habit they could create in their lives.
To create in their lives right now, I would say to find one area of their life, just one thing that's been bugging them, that just feels like it's on repeat, that it's just a constant frustration with them. Find that one thing. There will be one thing, at least. There'll probably be a million, but there's one that they'll immediately will have popped into their brain right now. And that is the one thing that you need to go and change in your life. That is the thing where you need to get honest with yourself about why it's bugging you. If it's a boundary or someone doing something, where are you letting them get away with that? Where are you not expressing yourself? Where are you not saying that's not okay? If it's, you know, an area of your work that you're just not loving, where can you tweak that straight away? There's always, it might not be able to do a complete change. You know, if there's sort of the work's bugging them, you might be able to quit, but there'll be a tweak, some little change that can be done, quite frankly, in the next 24 hours to 48 hours. And it might even just simply be a decision that they need to make that they've been putting off, but there's something and they know already what it is and they need to go and do it right now.
Thank you for joining me today. Obviously, if any of the women watching have got questions, that they can pop it into the comments, and you'll be popping it in and out through the day to answer those. If somebody wants to find more about you and your superpower, where can they see you?
Yeah, so I tend to hang out on my Facebook business page and Instagram are my two favourite hangouts.
And their names?
Yeah, so my Instagram handle is @PolishYourSparkle. And my business page is Ari Powell Empowerment.
Do you have a website?
I do, but it is totally going through a revamp right now, so it's probably not the best place.
So at the moment, if you want to jump in and get in touch with Ari, the link is at the top in the description of her Facebook page. But would love to welcome you into her space on Facebook and Instagram. So get in touch with Ari there. Ari, thank you so much for sharing your superpower with us. I'm sure that every woman that is watching is going to take a little bit of your superpower with them. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Just dampen that down a bit.